thank everybody for being here. That's not shutting down. There we go. I don't know.
There we go.
All right. Somebody's got my reverb. Can you hear that?
No, we don't hear it.
Just on your end.
Okay. So this is the problem, everybody. I appreciate everybody being here tonight. I'm on my laptop. My computer died last night, and I haven't had time to change the power supply. So we're getting a little bit of a different look and feel tonight, but the cast of characters does not change. I'm your host, Nathan Bomber Brown. With me are my co-hosts, The Wild Ute, Moen After Dark, and Immaculate View. How you guys doing tonight?
Fantastic.
Great.
Awesome.
Who had the time to even do work today? If you went into the office, I know you work from home. It was pretty hard to work, wasn't it?
I came home to madness is basically what happened.
I got myself in a little bit of trouble on Twitter, but everything works out in the end. I want to thank everybody for tuning in tonight. We're starting off with 30 people, but I know it's going to grow. We are literally talking about college football playoff negotiations. We're talking about Kirk Schultz, Washington State, and what's the status with that. We're going to talk about possible strategies for Washington State and Oregon State moving forward and possibly trying to use their strength to lever themselves into more control or access, at least, for the college football playoff, and so much more. We got so much to cover tonight. We really, in 2 hours, I think we're going to be stretching time. So we're going to dive right in. First of all, I would just want to get you guys' let me first invite everybody. Please subscribe, follow us all on Twitter, and try to become a part of the Mafia family. We've got a new video that shows you how to join as a member. Let me run that, and then we'll get right to the news.
Want to become a member of the College Football Mafia family? Simply select the Join button from our homepage. There are several options with their own unique benefits to choose from. You can also set yourself to auto-accept gifted membership by selecting the gift settings options as shown.
That video is so much better than the other one.
Nice job, Moan.
Thank you.
That is so awesome. We need to figure out a way to make sure we get the back screen so that we don't have our pictures on the side of it. I'm sure that's a setting I just didn't activate. But other than that, the video is fantastic. And I want to invite everybody to do that. Follow those instructions from Moen. I'll tip it off in another hour. I'll run those instructions so everybody knows. But that's basically how you do it. The other thing I want to do is shout out immediately the people who are here first, because we're not going to have time to do it later. So I'm going to say Buckshot Kid, David Hackett. Let's see. Jan Hoke, all the way from Slovenia. Let's see here. All these words are small. Daniel Gygax, Timothy Green. Timothy Green's active tonight. I've seen him on Twitter. We got the Big Lubbock and Becky Go Huskies, one of our contributors for the new Big West Mafia Show, which our first edition of that was last night with Sergeant Pickles and Becky Go Huskies. I think that went pretty well. Did you guys have a chance to watch that?
Yeah, I was in the live chat.
He was there? Oh, a little bit. Yeah, I got the chance to look at a little bit last night before everything at home started to go down, but it looked pretty good. You guys look good.
I think Becky and Pickles did a wonderful job, and I think the show is going to be really successful, and I'm really glad that they're going to be doing and joining this journey with us. We can't wait to help them and grow that show. Finally, we'll say Edward Wayner, Donnie McNerney, let's see, Nightbot, no, he doesn't count. Friends, Call Me Sean, BR702, and oh my gosh, we're already this far. Buckshot is back, and Antoine Codes, the last comment, he says, I literally have nothing to do all day, and I still don't know how y'all keep
Loans.
You
Got to get some.
All right, so before we dive into
you belong here. Yes.
Before we jump into the actual stories, just today was kind of like a nuclear bomb going off this afternoon. I think all four of us were immediately on Twitter when we saw some of these notifications that went out about the college football playoff negotiations. What were you guys' first thoughts once you read that?
I still can't believe that the extension on our... Yeah. My audio good here?
I can hear you.
We
You're
can
good.
hear you.
Yep, we can hear you.
Yeah, so I'm still shocked that the 1.3 billion per year extension of the ESPN contract, that's not quite finalized yet, but it looks like it's going to get there once Schultz kind of gives a thumbs up eventually here. But man, that's a lot lower than we anticipated. That's like a 2.5 times multiplier compared to what is being paid out today to at least the P5 conferences. So that's going to have a lot of ramifications on realignment. It's going to have a lot of ramifications on budgets. And I'm sure a lot of A4 schools can't be happy with this. It's kind of a fail, honestly. It seems like, as far as how much you're going to get out of this deal for how many more games you're bringing to the table. I'm shocked that it's so low, actually.
So, go ahead, Immaculate.
I was about to say, shall we put on our tinfoil hats for this take?
Absolutely.
Sure,
if this thing was such a done deal,
you bet.
Going along with ESPN, I think some ESPN reporters would have been the ones reporting it, not The Athletic. I think this was a little bit of a someone putting this out there maybe before it was supposed to. Because to me, this just looks like an ESPN offer. It even says in the article in The Athletic that it still has not been voted on by either the presidents on the board or by the commissioners on the management committee, which means it hasn't even been put into a form to take to the presidents to vote on. That's what they do in the management committee. They kind of put it all together in a way to present to them real quick just to get a vote. So this is not a done deal. And the fact that it came from a source other than ESPN tells me there's some shenanigans at play here. I could be wrong, but it feels like shenanigans. What do you think, Moen?
Yeah, it's not shenanigans. The Big Ten and the SEC leaked this. This is clearly done to drive their narrative, which is why you flipped and saw ESPN leak the Schultz interview today, to put out that narrative. These shows getting leaked are just to put out narratives.
And remember that Rebecca Auerbach with The Athletic, she's also the liaison reporter between NBC and the Big Ten. That got announced earlier, and it doesn't ever get talked about much, but she's the one with that connection. So I agree with him. I think that this might have actually been put out by the Big Ten with SEC approval, because this might have been the first thing we saw come out of that advisory committee. Just tinfoil hat off.
And just to round that up, I agree with all of you. In fact, I immediately created a chat session with both Bob Thompson and Greg Flugar and said, hey, what do you think about this? And Greg was way underwhelmed. And he definitely felt like that it did not feel like that it was everything they could have gotten. And then Bob, of course, put out a bunch of tweets, and all of the questions in the universe are answered by him. He's told me he's going to be on our show tomorrow night.
Oh, awesome!
Ooh,
excellent,
nice.
Spicy.
Yeah, that's it. Hopefully he can do it. His schedule is extremely tight. He doesn't do a lot of shows, but he is a friend of the show, and he told me that he would give me some time. That sometime between 7 and 7:30 Eastern time is what I'm planning for that. So it's earlier in the evening. It's different, anyways, because of not Halloween. Well, it's kind of Halloween. It's Valentine's Day. And so that's going on anyway. So I'm hoping we play out that tomorrow. So,
if I could add to his thing real quick, the 1.3 is massively underwhelming. But Bob even goes to show that it might even be less than that. So the numbers that we knew in the past, and they had this marked, the early projections were like around 2.1, 2.2 billion. We're talking, I don't know, you're the mathematician here. I mean, that's not quite 50% drop off, but that's what you get when you're looking at just one network covering the whole thing versus having healthy competition between multiple networks, all raising the bar on what they'll pay out. And we know from its work that ESPN has actually provided lower and lower numbers for the CFP than what they were before previously when they were showing more on ABC. Once they put it fully on ESPN, the numbers are lower. So I'm sorry, I am not a believer in this actually even getting past the presidents. And I agree 100% with Moen that this was a leak to affect the situation, because I don't think the Big Ten and the SEC are happy with that number. And I think this is the Big Ten pushing this because the SEC doesn't want ESPN mad at them.
Do you guys think that they're going to try to leverage a different type of counteroffer here for a lot more money? Do you think there's more money to be had, or do you think this 1.3 billion is about static?
I've been saying for a while.
So
I think this.
My biggest
we're seeing the
question
final.
isn't
Go ahead. Go ahead, Bomber. I think we're a little
ahead.
lag from you.
No, you're
Okay,
you're good.
I'll be real quick.
Finish it.
I think that some of these, like the Big Ten, the SEC, are not really enthused with keeping the CFP going. I think it's been proving here lately that, division on the board, it's not been going smoothly. That's not an attack on anyone for what their presidents maybe are doing on the board. It's just a fact of the matter is it's not going smoothly. So I don't think that they like this as much going forward. And I think if this is the only option that they have on the table right now, they're leaking it as like showing this is not good right now. And right when they're working together and looking to have something else, I'm still standing my guns, conference playoffs in the future, but it could be something else. But I'm starting to think more and more that it's definitely not going to be the CFP as we know it.
So my initial takeaway has nothing to do with the numbers themselves. It's the fact that Fox isn't trying to be an equal partner. In other words, it's not going to an open bid. It's still with ESPN, who's the current rights holder, and it's not going to an open bid. And that shocks me. Yeah, go ahead, Moan.
Yeah, this is what happens when you have oligopolies. It's a fixed bid system now. So ESPN and Fox, there's no reason to compete against each other. They're in bed with each other. Why compete for the college football playoff? ESPN will cover that cost. Fox will cover another cost. They'll drive the prices down. This is the problem when you get into situations like this, when you have these big conglomerates all coming together to make a service. It's not good for the consumer. It's bad for the consumer. And it'll keep getting worse for a consumer as the years go on.
And that explains the low number.
I think so.
Good.
Okay. So that's collusion. It's actually against the law.
But they're business partners now, so it technically isn't.
Not
what you know. It's not what you know. It's what you can prove.
Right. And an open records request would be nice to see.
Yeah.
What they've been talking about for the last 9.
But they can argue now that they're not so much competition against each other, but they're business partners. And that might break up that whole streaming app thing if something was to come up after them. But for now, I think that's their play, is that they're saying that we're business partners now.
So
I agree with Mo to hear that. Yeah, it's all intertwined here, and it seems a little shady. Now that they're business partners, what does that mean for Fox? Are they going to get a cut? In some way, shape, or form? We don't know yet. But it's so low, guys. 1.3 billion, like for all these games for the rights. Like you wonder if Amazon or like a streamer would get in. Like it is that low for that many games where it might be advantageous for somebody else to jump in the game. Like seriously, if there's not going to be fair competition amongst the networks. And guys, we talked about last week, the media rights environment right now is so bad. It's horrible. This is a horrible time to be negotiating extension. Not many of these companies have a lot of extra money to throw right now. So it's pitiful timing. The Pac-12 knows that over the last 6 to 9 months too. And so this is what it is. And so you need a streamer to come in to bring up the price, but I'm not sure that's going to happen. We'll see.
So this is what I was thinking we could do is you and I could do a video that actually did stepstones so everybody could see how we got to where this bid currently is. It would be nice to put in some breaks that show here they hate each other, here now they love each other, and how those steps basically goes from one end to the other in the last 2.5, 3 years. It's a show idea. You guys think about it, but I would love to do something, a short even, and just show just a timeline. Just say, this is how we got to where we are today. Because I am agreeing with everything you guys have said. I think it is fixed, and I think it's potentially against the law. But again, what can you prove? I think it does show that Fox and ESPN are going to say the same thing. And by ESPN owning the whole thing, it means that they can really charge out whatever they want to Fox. And it's in the contract.
Right.
So
they reserve they reserve the right to sub-license too. So
Yes.
don't
That's
think
what I
that
saw that,
Fox,
yeah.
Yep.
So Fox is going to get their pick of those
Mhm.
games. So you can rest assured that most of the Big Ten games, or at least the really high quality ones, are going to try and pull some leverage to get those sub-licensed to the Fox.
But if they do that, are there going to be clauses in this deal that mean ESPN then has to up their pay, or will they be able to sub-license and just eat up all the profit from that? It's question. We'd have to see the details of this deal.
This never happens if you don't get into like a business partnership with another company.
No,
right?
hell no.
Like
The timing of this
these things are all interconnected.
it is
so
not
much,
coincidental.
Right?
It is
Like it is not, and like
coincidental.
and ESPN and Fox are business partners now under a new entity that we don't know the name of yet. And,
Yep.
and this is business dealings right here, secondary business dealings, and that's how it works, guys. So like you need more competition outside of ESPN and Fox to jump in the game to bring up the price. But again, like media companies right now are sucking right financially, so
Right.
it's a tough ask right now. And it might just be, it is what it is, and like we're moving from $6 million right now to $15 million, in the future here. So really it wasn't that big a jump as far as a playoff bump, which is just mind blowing and numbing here. So it's crazy.
Because we all know, as we've talked about for months, that college football and pro football, NFL, are the two fastest growing and most engaging sports in the United States.
Yep.
And they're 1 and 2. I mean, they're even better than Vanderpump Rules, which is crazy.
And
So
just real quick
Go
on
ahead.
top of that, the NFL is not happy with this ESPN Fox situation.
Right.
We're gonna see some serious pushback from there, which means those two might even be looking even more to their college football content if, say, the NFL plays hardball with them and somehow breaks out of their contracts with them.
all right, well, we'll touch back on this. Let's get a few other news items out of the way, and then that'll be the major topic later in the show. All right, so the first thing I have, and I want to make sure I'm sharing the right thing. I'm going to wait on that. Okay, we're going to do the Washington State, Oregon State, and them firing George Kliavkov. Basically, he's gone, right? They're working on the final paperwork to see him leave.
Yep.
I want to share one screen grab that I had for Matt Lovelace, a friend of the show. He's replying to a tweet from John Wilner, and he says, the Pac-12 has formally begun the process of separating from Commissioner George Kliavkov. And then to clarify, he says, on this, Wazoo, OSU weren't going to move forward on this inevitable decision until they got clarity on staffing needs and conference configuration, a clear step they're ready to manage the future of the league. And then another tweet from Michael McCann, somebody that I hope to have on the show sometime soon, says separating signals a settlement where the Pac-12 pays George Kliavkov some amount, and both sides contractually waive claims that they may have against each other. In contrast, a firing, especially for cause, could lead to a contract breach lawsuit. Looks like they're trying to avoid that. So what do you guys think about this?
It's about freaking time. That's what I think about this. This is a year too late. This should have happened a long time ago. Like, the bigger question is, how is George K still employed? After the conference fell apart. That's the bigger question to me than how he's going to be let go right here. It just is crazy that the guy still has a job, and now he's negotiating. He's going to get some golden parachute and everything. Like, well done, George. Really well done. I'll tell you that.
Well, he's negotiating his buyout, which means they're bringing it down from where it was. I mean, he could have been a real hard ass and just said, no, this is what's in the contract. You pay me this. So when they say they're negotiating the buyout, that means they're trying to bring it down, and he is apparently playing ball with them. Yeah. He could very much be a hard ass and say, no, pay me what I'm owed.
That's definitely why I wanted to bring in McCann's opinion on this. I thought it was a very astute legal professional opinion of why this might be going on. Now, this is an opinion. The previous one you showed, I consider that to be a fact, because he's actually connected with WSU and does a lot of their media reports. Right. Matt Lovelace, we think is fact. McCann, I think, is opinion, but it's an opinion that is very well put out there, put together by someone who specializes in this stuff. And so for folks, this is the one I would actually point to even more to claim why this might be happening now. Because when I first heard this, I thought, is this connected to all this madness going on? Are they finally ready to make a deal? Do they have something figured out for the pack? So now they need to find the person who can then take it going forward. But I think what McCann is saying here is that this is actually maybe naturally occurring on its own on a separate timeline. It just happens to all be occurring at the same time. Like that's it's just they're finally at that point to where they can make this settlement with him.
Does anybody think that the timing of all these releases today was an accident?
No.
I don't think any of them was an accident.
Or I think most of them are even
very
connected.
staged.
Yeah. Well, most of all this is staged. That's why we love talking about it so much. Like
Right.
releases to the media are usually timely and meant to have some type of an effect, whether affecting people who then affect someone else who's part of it. There's generally a reason. It's just right now it seems to be coming at us so hard and so fast that it's hard to keep track of it all. And it's getting pretty serious when you have possible business partners with an entity releasing information about that to a different entity that is a direct competitor with the entity that they're in. I mean, for them to release that to the Athletic to talk about an ESPN deal, that was taking it to another level. That was pretty eye-opening to me. And I know Moen kind of really got me on track and seeing the whole thing there. So this was one of the more eye-opening days that we've had in quite a little while.
Anything else on that point?
I could go on for hours.
Well, I'm not going to let you do that. So that's
exactly.
not going to work. Here we go. So the next thing I'm going to bring up, and I want you to answer this first. So today I went on, it was actually yesterday, I went on Locked On Big 12, and I gave my opinion about kind of what Schultz's strategy should or could or would be. And I got a lot of feedback on Twitter. People angry, some people questioning. I'm just going to say it for once and have it over with. I have never once been against Washington State and Oregon State getting promoted or moved into the Big 12, for instance. In fact, me and you were two of the earliest online to be the advocates of that to happen. But now that everything's gone by, all the lawsuit's been settled, and everything else is associated with is basically been and dusted. At this point, there's not much more to do. So, in my opinion, all I was saying is that Schultz has this vote, and just being obstructionist by itself isn't a strategy. And that there needs to be something deeper going on. And the easiest way to do that is if you're on good terms with the people you're negotiating with. People take a little of that out of context, I'm saying just be nice and run us over with your tractor. Not only did I not say that, but I didn't even insinuate it. But it is important to me in relationships, I'm in a relationship business, that I think relationships are really important and need to be sort of nurtured and taken care of. And just being obstructionist doesn't do that. Okay.
Yeah, and like Nate, you've been on that take for weeks here. You haven't changed your stance on this. And we've had a lot of dialogue on this channel about this situation. You've just always been on that. So this isn't a new take from you at all. I'm sure that a lot of new folks on Locked On Big 12 heard it for the first time. But yeah, there's differing thoughts on it. Like that's a very rational and a relational take. It's a good take and everything. And then the other side, you understand, because we've made mention of it on the show, is just to freaking burn it to the ground if you're Wazoo and Oregon State, because you're going to get left out anyway, and you want to cause max pain for everybody. Like that really is like a dynamic that's going on. Like if we're going down, we're going to take everybody with us, and we're just going to go screaming, yelling, and you're coming with us, right? Like that is a view too, and that's an angry, upset view, which makes sense because of what's happened with those schools. They've gotten screwed, but that is that makes sense too from its own perspective. Like when you're really upset and everything else, and you feel like you're going to get left out, and there's no benefit either way, might as well rip this thing down. So that's where that's coming from. I think that backlash to you.
It's a place of love. Moen or Immaculate, you want to add anything to that before I bring up the tweet?
Well, yeah, I have a lot of kind of experience with the Washington State, Oregon State crowd as of late, since we've really dived into that a lot more than most folks have. So they have kind of a connection to us. So I think, they're looking at you just as much for that. But they're very absolutist, right? Because like as you saying, they feel like they have their back against the wall, right, and that the whole world is against them, and anything that they perceive as being kind of a shot or a slight against what they perceive like their leaders are doing, yeah, they're gonna fire back. I've taken a couple shots myself, and but it is like you're saying, you got to understand, like these folks are up against the wall, and I personally don't think what Schultz is doing is obstructionist in nature. I think he is just leveraging, but I could totally understand how a lot of other people see it that way. And maybe some other leaders that are in that room do see it that way. So I think your point is a good point to be made. But like you're saying, I think people might have misunderstood like your overall view on it.
Right. Yeah, you guys have it right, and I appreciate your support. More than that, I appreciate the Mafia family. You guys know what we've been doing for almost a year now. We've been the same. We've never changed our minds, and we do nothing but support these schools that are struggling. So it's going to keep going. Nothing's going to change after today. I just want to make sure everybody knows and reiterate that I'm in the corner for Washington State and Oregon State. All four of us are. And we only want what's best for them. So whatever we say and do, that's our advocacy and what we're trying to do for that group.
And then that's one more thing.
Yeah.
These Washington State and Oregon State folks need to understand you're a BYU guy. If anyone's going to understand what they're going up against, it's you. So I just wanted to say that a little bit too.
What's best for Wazoo and Oregon State is to get in the ACC, guys. That's what's best. So you, Cougar fan and Beaver fan, you need to see the ACC burn, baby, burn, because that is the absolute best thing for you. Once FSU's gone, Miami's gone, Clemson's gone, you get entry into the ACC. So that is the best thing for you. The ACC destruction is your growth potential here. That's how this game goes. You mentioned it before, Bomber, last week. It's a zero-sum game. Someone's going to fall and somebody else is going to rise, and that's what's going to happen with those two schools. They're going to get added to the ACC.
And I said that on Twitter again today. So that's what I think where their best move is. Just being on their own, just cashing checks without being in the process. I don't think that was ever a plan. Anyway, so let me get to this tweet, and it's from our friend of the show, GCFM. There were several references to this, but I liked his tweet by himself, so I want to give him credit for that. Basically, this says, WSU Schultz speaks to Heather Dinich and says the following via an article on ESPN. And this is a quote from Schultz. "We've got to be a good colleague in the college football world. We asked for the opportunity to have a hearing on revenue distribution. That was granted. We have to be really careful about saying, if you don't give us exactly what we've asked for, we're going to hold up some other things. The decision has to be one made by us in Oregon State, and we're still going through that decision-making process leading up to that meeting next week. There is no assumption to be made that we have to get X to get Y either way." And I would just quote, it's ironic, this came after I was burned to the ground in the morning on Twitter. This came out this evening. So it answers everybody's questions, what Kurt Schultz is thinking, and there's no gray areas there. So let me bring you guys back. What'd you think about that?
I think there's a little dishonesty there. If they don't get X, they're not going to go Y.
Yeah. Like it's like, this is a little, sorry, Washington State fans watching, I'm just going to have to say this, but this was a little bit of the old Schultz. This was a little bit of the stuff. Remember when we used to make fun of him for some of the things he said that were just so outlandish? This is one of those. He's been voting no on 5+7 this whole time, and we're supposed to expect and believe him that had nothing to do with getting these other things. It just doesn't pass the smell test. I'm sorry.
But immaculate. He says right there, there's no assumption to be made that we have to get X to get Y.
Don't care. Like, that's talk. That's media talk. Actions speak louder than words. And I'm sorry. I approve of what Schultz is doing. I get it. He's got to leverage. He's got to fight. But don't expect me to believe that. That's just
That's some rosy language right there, guys. Really rosy. Schultz is a dog underneath that, though. He's a straight dog,
it's
man.
Not connected, guys. No, like, dude,
right?
Come on. You've been fighting this thing off for like 6 months now. Come on.
Hey, by the way, too, I've got to interject here.
Yeah,
hey, Moan, 10 out of 10 on the costume tonight, brother.
For real.
Getting ready for softball season here.
Perfect.
There you go.
Oh, I love it, man.
Some folks were looking forward to seeing that before the show, too. And I was like, I'm looking at it right now, and it's pretty amazing.
Yes.
Yeah.
All right, that's all we want to talk about that. We don't have to get into it very far. We all had the same opinion about it. Finally, he said something out loud. He said the quiet part out loud now, and everybody knows where he's coming from.
And that's the important part. That's why I made a post. I was like, oh, he's going on the offensive now. He's
Right.
coming out. We're getting down to the nitty gritty. There's not much time left. He's making a move now.
All right, moving on to funner and more engaging stuff. Let's talk about the Super Bowl.
Whoop, whoop.
How did that go down? I was cheering for your Chiefs, boy.
Yeah, man, my homie got it done at the end of the game. What was weird about that game, too, if it would have gone past that overtime, it would have gone directly into a second overtime. So it wasn't like that was the last play of overtime.
Right.
I got confused. But up and down game, I'm happy to be Super Bowl champs. Go Chiefs.
Anybody else want to say something?
I was pulling for the 49ers. I had to kind of root for the Iowa boys connection, the Purdy to Kittle. Didn't really come through. But, congratulations. You guys are back-to-back winners. That is historic.
No one?
Yeah, they shouldn't have been back-to-back winners because last year they coin flipped. It should have been held in Cincinnati. The AFC Championship game should have been in Cincinnati. And I'm going to hold that grudge for the rest of my life. So
salty.
Cincinnati's y'all. You guys keep getting you're the bridesmaid left at the altar. So
yeah, well, coin flip.
Let's talk about a couple of the things that came out of it. First of all, who thought that there was too much Taylor Swift? Okay, I didn't think so.
I think it's fine. Yeah.
Who thought there was really bad holding and the fixes in for Kansas City to win?
There was missed holding calls on both sides.
Yeah, I didn't really have I wasn't left with the feeling like that there was I just didn't quite feel it. I mean, it was down to the wire. 49ers could have won it. They just didn't win it.
Yeah.
McCaffrey's touchdown, guys, in the first half, there should have been a penalty flag for an illegal man downfield. So if you're going to say it's fixed, it's 49er fixed, not Chiefs fixed, dude.
I was yelling at the screen when I saw that blocker down there. Within the 5 yards, you're okay. But, yeah, he was like 8 or 9 yards.
A free touchdown.
Yeah. You know what, though? They do that all year. If you haven't watched him as a Seahawks fan, I get to see him twice a year. And for the last 2 years, 4 games, I've seen that happen over and over and over again. They let him get away with murder on those little fly sweeps.
Well, let us never forget it was a Michigan man who missed the point after.
That's true. That's true. That was a bad kick, by the way. All right, let's talk about another headline that came over the weekend. What's up with the grub to the Seahawks? Did you guys see that?
Oh, Immaculate and I were heated on this. Heated on this. You want me to go on a rant? What an absolute piece of shit Grubb is. He knew he was taking the Seahawks job probably weeks ago. He kept making these declarations. I'm the Alabama offensive coordinator. And isn't it something? The day when the portal closed down and none of those kids could get out of there, suddenly he announces that he's the Seahawks coordinator. I think the NCAA,
that's all I care about.
The NCAA should step in right now and say that 30-day window resets. Any kids that signed NLI letters, guess what? If you want to break them, you can break them. That is just dishonest bullshit from Grubb and DeBoer, and they both should be ashamed of themselves.
I agree 100%. And for a Seahawks fan, you have nothing to be ashamed of. I mean, you got your guy. I mean, it's fine. But the word was that they actually came to an agreement to have him like well prior to this.
2 weeks ago.
And they
2
were
weeks
talking
ago.
since that point, like, oh, we're looking at Eric Bieniemy. Oh, we're doing
Yeah,
all
that
this other
was
stuff.
Chip Kelly. That was
Total
never on it.
garbage.
Yeah.
And yes, like if you have a coach who was there for even just a year, had coached there, had skin in the game at Alabama, and said, you know what, I'm going to hold off on this because I don't want to be the cause of some guys being lost. The whole time he was there, he was already looking away, like he was never going to be there. So yes, in this case, to me, I'd go so far as to say it was unethical to do it the way he did it, because these are not horses that they're trading here. These are young men who are looking to these guys as their like leaders, damn near sometimes like father figures.
If you're not cheating, you're not trying, though. Didn't we just see that with the
Yeah,
Nevada
that's
year?
100% true right there.
But there's a line. And in my
What
opinion,
is the line? Tell me what the line is.
the line is that he drew players to that school or helped keep players at that school. And then once the 30-day period for the head coach is over, he left. When word is, this is the man behind the DeBoer offense. This is the man that Saban wanted to get last year.
That's why I
could
wanted
not
him so bad.
pull from them. He's what he wanted all along. It was not DeBoer. And this is the
No.
guy that they're selling to players in order to get them to stay. And then when the 30 days is over, he's gone. There's guys who were wanting to go to those schools, and people think it's no big deal because the spring portal will open up and they can go there. Yes, and they miss spring ball, which people may not realize it, but that's a very integral part to a player getting accustomed to their team, figuring out where their place is in the hierarchy, where their place is going to be. And so now kids that might want to leave there and go to another school, they're going to go there on lesser terms than they would have had they known about this while the portal was still open in this 30 days. So do I think it was unethical? Yes. Is there a rule against it? Did he break a rule? Nope. Perfectly fine. Perfectly acceptable. Okay. Not saying that he should get in trouble for it, but the system, the rule, after seeing this should be the final example of why the unintended consequences of that 30-day portal rule needs to be looked into and changed. I don't think anyone should be punished because this is a problem with the rule itself, not Grubb, not anyone else. This was not a situation you could have foreseen when making the rule. But now that we have seen it, you cannot just ignore how effed up this was.
How can you legislate it?
Yeah, well,
they do not pay me enough to make that decision. I'm just saying they need to fucking do it. Sorry.
Because I don't know how you legislate it.
I'll tell you how you legislate it. You change the rules where it doesn't say head coach, because those NLI guys, they can't jump in the spring portal guys. If they sign that national letter of intent with Alabama, if they want to leave, they've got to sit a year. They have to sit a year because the NLI rules say head coaching change. Well, imagine if you're a receiver coming to play that you believe you're going to be playing for Grubb, and Grubb's left. And now you're stuck on Alabama for a year. Maybe you want your options to reopen your recruitment. Can't have it because Ryan Grubb's a douchebag. In fact, that's what he should change his name to. Summer's Eve Grubb. Giant douchebag.
Okay, this is my thought.
Wow.
Aren't we just one lawsuit away from those NLI rules to be completely torn up and thrown out?
That's what I'm saying. The NCAA needs to come in and change the rules
I don't think. Yeah, they better change them quick.
The NCAA is about to get their sacks snipped off, though, in this Tennessee versus NCAA case. Even the judge is saying, I can't give you your injunction right just yet, but you're going to lose this case. When I saw that, I about lost my mind. I'm like, how is you as a judge, can you come in there before the case even starts when they're just talking about an early injunction to stop the app saying, I can't do this just yet, but you're going to lose the case anyways. Like,
that's kind of what happened to Washington
State.
State.
Be calling for another judge. Like, he's already said he's leaning towards them losing the case before even hearing arguments. It's that insane what's going on right now. It's that bad. Like, they are losing their ability with that case to make any judgment on NIL at all. The NCAA, in certain terms, is going to be neutered. They are going to have zero ability to govern NLI as soon as that case is over. And so, yeah, they're going to have to refigure the entire thing.
I'll give you the final word.
Well said, guys. Well said there. For me, the bigger takeaway, I would agree with a lot of your points that it was unethical of Grubb to do that. We're turning into a transactional business on the player end and the coach end. And the players have a little bit of handcuffs with this because of the letter of intent. But it's just so transactional that the relationships, I don't know what kind of relationships are formed now at the college level between coach and player. Not a good move. Not a good move. But really, what does this mean for Kalen DeBoer? That's he's the head coach. He's the face of the program. Your offensive coordinator leaves, and all of a sudden, it was already a weird kind of fit in Alabama. His star coach leaves. What does that mean for Alabama football? Alabama football, in my opinion, is in massive trouble, guys. I don't think it's going to work with DeBoer. I think that they're going to go seriously. We're talking about a really bad hire from Bama, and this is case in point number 1 or 2 or 3 because he never figured out how to recruit in the SEC. He never was in that footprint. He was always in the Midwest or West. It never made sense to hire DeBoer, and so it's just a complete failure on the Alabama hiring front and getting the wrong head coach into that position. That's how I see it.
I think we found out that Saban wanted Grubb more than he wanted DeBoer. He tried to go for him previously. I think, when he says DeBoer was his guy, I think he thinks that highly of Grubb in his offense. And Washington had, basically the number 1 offense. It had the number 1 offensive line. And that's another guy that went with Grubb. By the way, the offensive line coach that went with that came from Washington with those 2 coaches to Alabama that had the number 1 offensive line winning the award, he went with Grubb to Seattle as well. So now,
and he brought along his offensive line coach too.
That's what I'm saying. To me, that's as big of a deal as losing that guy along with Grubb.
Right.
I mean, now you're talking all those offensive linemen who might have been like, I want to be with this guy because he's the number 1 offensive line coach in the country. Oh no, he's gone. And you just missed your 30-day window. So I get there's people in chat who think this is not as big of a deal, and that's fine. Everyone's due their opinion. But to me, this is a very big deal. And I think DeBoer is left hanging in the wind right now.
How bad is Alabama going to be in the DeBoer era, guys?
Mid.
Is Alabama,
mid.
we're talking mid SEC or
Big
25?
8-4. 8-4.
7-5.
On the best side.
7
We're
and
talking borderline ranked, unranked for Alabama?
Yeah, it's possible.
Unranked.
Top 25?
That's unranked.
Yeah.
Yeah.
What
I
I could be wrong,
happens, right?
but I mean, I think we found out that Grubb is the guy, not DeBoer. DeBoer would always leave a school after 2 years, so he's not a good recruiter. He basically was doing this on other people's teams,
using other people's players.
Yeah, and now he doesn't have his number 1 OC. He doesn't have his number 1 offensive line guy. He's in foreign territory, and they're going to be looking for a sacrifice when this goes mid, and who's going to be the one to blame? It ain't going to be Saban. It's going to be DeBoer. And
what's his shelf life? What's the DeBoer shelf life?
2 years.
I still think 2 years is his max.
2 years probably.
Gosh.
I never felt that he was the final answer anyway. Nobody wanted to take the job after Saban, but they don't mind cleaning up the pieces after somebody comes in and blows it up. And I think that's what we're looking at.
Lane Kiffin, immaculate.
I've been such a fan of this guy. I was like, why didn't he take it? Now I know. Now I know. Lane Kiffin knew. He's like, nope, I'm waiting. I'm gonna go win the SEC with the Ole Miss this year, and then they're gonna pick me up at Alabama to replace DeBoer.
Boy, that would be awesome. I'd love to see Ole
Lane
Miss in the
Kiffin.
playoff. I would love that.
You asked, what does this mean for Kalen DeBoer? It means that he locked down the number 2 recruiting class because many of them believed that Ryan Grubb and that offensive line coach were both going to be their coaching.
Do you really think that the players were going to stay for Grubb and not DeBoer?
Some of them transferred for Grubb. There was a kid, Michigan State, transferred to Washington, immediately left Washington to go to Alabama to follow Grubb. Now that guy's stuck at Alabama. His coach is gone. He can't leave until
the quarterback,
the spring portal, and by then, portal. A lot of schools are already kind of set with who's on their teams, who's positions, coach player relationships. It's a bigger deal than people think. It's like, oh, you could just go later. These are when the formative relationships are being formed for this coming season. it's a big deal.
So when I put that banner up, I was expecting a rant of about 2 minutes. We just
Sorry.
did 15 minutes. No, it's great. I love it. This is what
To me,
people
it's
want from
important.
us.
Like, this is the important stuff to me.
Yeah,
Like,
I agree. All right.
What
well,
does the chat? What does the chat think about that? I mean, like, what do they think is going to happen to Alabama?
I think a lot
Seriously,
of
what does
people
the
are.
community say?
Moen,
like-
why don't you do a thing? Why don't you do a poll?
Yeah, let's do a poll.
Shelf life for Kalen DeBoer at Alabama.
Oh, I
Or
was gonna
either
do
that or like.
if
what-
Greg
Okay.
was a douchebag, but that's
Well, okay, that's
Stop,
okay.
Oh gosh.
Oh man.
Let's get
I
some
love
super chats in while we're waiting. Okay, guys. Here's our first super chat from Ryan Willie, one of our members. Thank you very much, Ryan.
Yep.
People have so many options for their entertainment. TV is dying because of oversaturation. And I would throw into that, that includes your on-demand services. Netflix going down. Prime's trying to get different type of viewers now. I know you have some insight there. Why don't you kind of give somebody a look behind the curtain?
Here's the deal: is like your main networks paid a lot of money for rights, college football rights, and NFL rights if they own any NFL licensing, and that has been great because viewership is good, but it's not even profitable enough to keep them making money. They're losing money. There's not a lot of money to bid out there because the people that would give you money are losing money, guys. Like they're borderline staying in business. So that's why there's not just an endless supply of money. There's not enough competition, like we talked about in the marketplace. Amazon hasn't jumped in. Streamers haven't really jumped in. Netflix is the interesting one. That's the only streamer that's making money right now. And they just bought WWF content, WCW content. Like they don't really have anything else like other live content for sports. That would be the big player that needs to jump in here. But yeah, I agree with Ryan here. It is dying because it's oversaturated. And plus you spend too much on the sports right content, especially the NFL, which is crazy because NFL gets huge ratings. And that's the only reason that people are watching network TV, but still it's not making them enough money to be even profitable. It's just basically getting them by. So there's just not there's not a pot of gold somewhere right now. That's just how the media market is until they find a different way to do business, guys.
And that's probably what we see ESPN
Well,
and Fox
immaculate.
working on together. He's on it. I'm just saying that's probably what we're seeing ESPN and Fox working on with the streaming app together is looking for a new way to do business, as he says.
Mergers,
Yeah,
right? And like in strategic partnerships.
right,
Yeah.
right. Strategic
Right?
partnerships,
And they're fighting
alliances.
off the barbarians at the gate because those are the old school money, the old school networks. They see Amazon coming in, they see Apple coming in, they see NBC with Peacock doing well. They're circling the wagons and saying we might have been enemies before, but we might have to be friends now.
Another
Yeah,
one
I
we
think
got
you're
you.
going to
Thank
see
you
more
very much.
streamers.
Go ahead. I'm sorry.
I'm going to say, I think you're going to see more streamers getting involved. I think one of the reasons this number leaked was to let streamers know this is what ESPN is offering for these first round games. Maybe jump in here and get you some of this Netflix. Maybe jump in here and get you some of this Peacock. We know Peacock's willing to spend for sports content.
Yep.
We know Amazon's willing to spend for sports content. We know Netflix is willing to spend for sports content.
true.
So
Yep.
maybe they're throwing this number out here to try and get that number up by getting some streamers involved.
Uh-huh.
Here's
I think
something
it's a
that's
great
completely
lure.
shocking. This is shocking to me, guys. This is like, okay, I'm going to back up a little bit because this means like just kind of paint a picture here. So we're talking last week and the weeks before how the Big 12 could punch back the Big 10 and the SEC because it feels
last
like,
week.
we're getting left behind a little bit. This development is very interesting. A $1.3 billion per year extension on the CFP. Do you guys know how much the NCAA tournament makes per year for the NCAA right now and through Turner, through CBS and and NBC? Do you guys know how much that yields per year, the NCAA tournament by itself?
Is it like $3 billion, I'm guessing?
It's actually it's undervalued, but it's actually sitting at $1 billion. So really, but it's undervalued. Yep. Wow. So both of the properties, though, right now are basically par even with themselves, the playoff and the NCAA tournament. So you already saw like the crackings out there with reports today about like talking about trying to pull more money in the Big 12 from the NCAA tournament by expanding the field. you guys, that's not the really way to do it. It's to pull it away from the NCAA and put it to market, and then have the Big 12, the ACC, who have stronger brands, get more for entries and yield more money. That's the way that you punch back. That's the way you do this. And this development is actually big time for basketball in the future and stuff. If the media market does shift down the line, it could be a big deal as far as like how to get more for the Big 12 and the ACC because of the basketball brands in those conferences. So something to watch. That's way, way in the future here, but it's kind of happening.
Anybody else before I get to another super chat?
No, I'm good with that. That was.
Thank you for the super chat, Ryan.
Yeah, thank you, Ryan. Here's another one from Ryan. He says Taylor Swift will be the halftime show next year. The fix was in.
Oh, that's going to be uncomfortable.
I'm not bothered by Taylor Swift. I like Taylor Swift. Why is that?
That's going to be uncomfortable, her being the halftime show and the Bengals are playing.
They're showing a lot of celebrities at this one. So, the whole thing through the season, I get maybe people thought it was too much, but she was bringing a lot of viewers. And you got to understand, for the networks, like this wasn't even an NFL choice. That's the networks. They were the ones doing this, trying to get the numbers up. So, talk to the networks if you like that, but that's their business. So I don't think so. But in terms of halftime show, they don't pay those performers anything. And she does not need the coverage. That's for someone who needs to get some spin onto them, some spotlight. She has all the spotlight she ever needs. They pay you like $1,000 to do that show. And a lot of these guys spend millions to put on that show because they're going to have an album releasing right afterwards.
Right.
It's an investment for these guys, and she doesn't need to make it. So I wouldn't be surprised if she maybe has a little part in something. But overall, I think it's going to be someone else footing the bill for that, not her.
So, Mo and I have just got something to say to you. How does it feel to watch the Chiefs become the Ohio State of the NFL?
Oh.
Well, that's not true entirely.
Oof, that one hurt me, and I don't even care.
Hey, you know what? Like, it's as a fan of a non-Ohio State team, watching you guys get all the media coverage and everything else and winning too many games. Welcome to my world in college sports, my friend.
What's Mahomes' record against the Bengals?
2-3.
Does anybody really care?
Oh, but it's still funny.
You care, but I'm not sure anybody else cares. At the end of the day, Bengals got a QB. That's all you need. So go and win. Man.
Best QB in the league.
All right. All right. Before we get move on, we're at 53 minutes, so I want to do a quick recircle, and we'll gather our feet, and then we'll jump into the college football playoff negotiations. I want to thank everybody for being here tonight. Let me bring up all of our we have so many new brands, and I want to make sure everybody follows us around the dial. We're the College Football Mafia. That's all of college football. Big 12 Mafia. That content's not going to change. We have now Big West Mafia. The first show of that was last night. Sergeant Pickles and Becky Go Huskies. It was a great show. They're going to cover the Pacific Coast teams going to the Big 10. That would be USC, UCLA, Oregon, and Washington. And it's going to have a little bit of a different flavor than our show, but they're still going to be in our envelope. Wild Ute University. If I have to tell you what Wild Ute University is, you're way behind the curve. I've got you. You're the source code for this thing. Tell everybody what Wild Ute University is.
Yeah, it's basically a model to say how good a candidate is for Big 10 entry at this point. In the future is going to be for SEC entry once the model's revised. But there's a lot of just information that's thrown around on social media and YouTube channels about this or that impacts realignment, where schools could end up. This is an aggregation of a bunch of different metrics that, based on this panel and discussions, that we felt were very strong as far as even predicting and just showing where a team might stack rank. So Wild Ute University just lays all that down, and it tells you where a school could rank based on current members. And so right now, the research is on Miami, the Hurricanes. We released a video for members only a few days ago, and that's in UNC to the Big. So hope you guys enjoyed that. If you did, please, when that actually gets public, please share that with other folks, because it's we put a lot of work in. We care a lot about that product too. And so I think it'd be awesome to share that with others. And course, like that. So that's what it's all about, though. We'll keep pumping these videos out. We've got more candidates down the line. We're going to look at Virginia. We're going to look at Georgia Tech. And we're also going to look, Moen, for you at Texas A&M.
Sure.
Go. Anybody else want to add anything to that?
Just one thing. I'm not going to give out any details, but there was one particular statistic that Wild Dude had in this video that made my eyes go big. And so I highly suggest checking it out, looking into it, commenting on it, or watching the comments and responding. I found it very interesting and almost quite unexplanatory and yet very real. So I thought it was a great one, and I really enjoyed it. So job well done, guys.
Really quick, I'm going to bring down that banner so everybody can see what it looks like in the Big 12 Mafia page. You just go to the videos tab, and here they are. This one's currently locked to members only, and that's UNC to the Big 10, what that looks like. And then Wild Ute has since completed one for Clemson, completed one for FSU. Those are both open to the public. Anybody can watch them. Just go to the Big 12 Mafia page, hit videos, and they'll pop up. And then there's this Wild Ute University, how private equity can be used by FSU. And that was free from the beginning. But that was a real good primer. If you don't know even what private equity can do in college sports, that was a good answer to that. So that's where you find those on our main page. And I would highly recommend them. You will be smarter tomorrow if you spend an hour watching all those videos tonight.
I'll tell you what, guys. And what about Clemson? The new smoke right here is Clemson's working with UNC. You maybe are partnering with UNC. That was reported by Peek Around the Corner earlier today. So you know what? On this channel, I've been on it the whole time that Clemson, they're not going to get left out. They're going to go. I think they're going to the Big Ten still. I don't care what kind of steam over to the SEC. To me, that makes no sense. 0 cents, Clemson to the SEC. But I see it in the Big Ten for sure. And they will get into one of those two. And I'm thinking the Big Ten. But, hey, they're back on the board, guys.
So do you also think that Florida State's going to the Big Ten?
You bet your bottom dollar.
And you think Clemson is tied to UNC, and so UNC is going to the Big Ten?
I think that's all smoke and mirrors. I think
Okay.
that UNC goes to the SEC. Well, I mean, UNC goes where
Okay,
they want.
I got you. They're working
UNC
together, but
goes
it
to where
doesn't
they
mean
want.
going to the same conference. per se.
What I like, we just did a little circle on it. Miami wasn't mentioned once. If Clemson goes to the Big Ten, Miami's not.
I don't know. I don't know about that. Actually,
I'm going to say
there's foursomes that work for the Big Ten, and Notre Dame could be involved, and they might not be involved. If they're involved, then yeah, that's great. But I don't think that the Big Ten, they're going to scoop 4 up. I think here, guys.
Okay.
So it's going to be 2.
So they go right to 22.
I think so.
Okay, that would be big news, earth-shattering. If that happened, the ACC would cease to exist as a power.
Do you think that there's? I mean, we're seeing right now with what's going on with the CFP, and what you're saying, you're reporting, is that there's a contraction, and the money is tough right now. Do you really? I mean, I find it hard to think that the Big Ten's go. Eventually, they're going to go higher, but it's really hard to look at them going past 20 right now.
I think that the issue, like I would agree with you on the money is contraction. Like we've already talked about that, the media market. But when you get into Florida and you look at geographics, like if you had FSU and then like a Notre Dame, FSU distance-wise, travel-wise, health-wise for the student athletes, you guys, that's going to pop up. It's going to be such a big issue. It's so much travel for any game that doesn't make sense on the surface. For like mental health reasons, guys. I'm real serious about that. You don't have a foursome like you have at West now. So Florida State needs travel partners, people that are close by that they don't have to travel, half of the U.S. to go play. And so I think that, Miami makes sense to add with Florida State, but Clemson also geographically makes a ton of sense. And you don't have to pay them a full revenue share. You can do a partial share for a period of time. I'm telling you, Clemson's going to get in the Big Ten.
All right.
Anyway, that's just analysis there. We don't have any smoke on that, and no one does right now. But just based on what I've seen, what really fits, brand size and everything. If you watch the Clemson video, you see how strong the brand is. That's not going anywhere.
Yep.
So
I want to circle back with all of our brands. Moen After Dark is a special show that Moen and Immaculate have been putting on Sunday nights. So currently we have shows every night except for Thursday and Saturday. And I've got plans for both of those days. So we're about to be wall to wall all week long on the Mafia channel. And I want to encourage everybody to be here. Make sure you're subscribed. Make sure you follow us all on Twitter, and then turn on your notifications. And last but not least, consider becoming a member of the Big 12 Mafia family. And here's the instructions on how to do that.
Want to become a member of the College Football Mafia family? Simply select the Join button from our homepage. There are several options with their own unique benefits to choose from. You can also set yourself to auto-accept gifted membership by selecting the gift settings options as shown.
Great. Absolutely amazing video, Moen, and all the graphics, everything that you guys have been seeing, all the changes and the refinery that we put into our channels, that's all on Moen After Dark. So I want to give him a clap in public. I appreciate all your work.
Cheers
Moen.
to you, Georgia Tech for you, Moen.
Winner.
Yeah.
Very much appreciated.
We don't take it for granted. And this has just been it's a ride, but it's a ride that we all like being on. One last super chat from Numbskull News. Good to have you here, Numbskull. He says Taylor Swift will give birth to the Antichrist for $1.99. So I'm sworn to read these super chats. So I haven't come across one I couldn't read yet. So Antichrist Taylor Swift, I'm not running away from anyway. All right.
Numbskull, man.
All right, we're top of the hour. I want to get to this big story, which is all about the college football playoff negotiation. I've got the article that started it all from my standpoint from the Athletic Up. Let me share that so everybody can see kind of what we're talking about. So the Athletic came out with this article. It was actually bumped on Twitter, and I linked it, and then we shared it around as a team. I'm going to post that so everybody can have access to it, so you can be reading along with us as we go through this head to toe. There's the link. I encourage everybody to go to the source. We didn't make this up. This is all from them. But the headline that you already sort of broke down, and you can go through the math with us. But college football playoff, ESPN agreed to 6-year extension worth $1.3 billion per year. And at the end of this, there should be a question mark. You want to be very clear, and it's ambiguous sometimes in text, but there is no written agreement that's signed yet. This has still been a proposal, the shot across the bow, as it were. And I really think that it's an opportunity for some of these other providers to possibly jump into the game and to, Amazon, Netflix, Amazon Prime. I mean, these are all vendors that might want to get in now that they kind of know what the rate is that they're talking about, which is considerably less than we anticipated. I would just say that at the outcome. Right now, Ute, why don't you catch everybody up? And what does that it's the 1.3 billion per year constitute?
Yeah, that's the total amount that the college football playoff will be receiving for media rights for all the games for the college football playoff. It's nothing to do with the regular season. It has to do with just the playoff games and where they will air and how much the media partners are going to pay for the content for the college football playoff games. It's coming in, and you guys in the 12-team playoff, I mean, you got 11 games. 11 games for 1.3 billion. I think that math's correct, right?
Yeah.
So really you kind of whittle down, I guess, if you want to see per game, just 1.3 billion divided by 11, and you'll get how much it costs per game, which is a lot still, but folks were thinking that was going to be double or possibly triple that much. Mm-hmm. And so it's a bit shocking that it's only 1.3 billion. And going back to the NCAA tournament, it's kind of wild that product, the college football playoff and all these playoff games would be worth the same amount as basketball in the NCAA tournament. That's shocking to me, at least. But that's what it means. And it's not finalized, as Immaculate mentioned. It's being held up by Schultz, correct? Mr. Schultz is hanging.
We don't know the details on that. It hasn't even gone before the management committee, which is the commissioners, and they generally take everything, put it together, form it up, and then present it to the board for a vote, because that's generally what the presidents do. They lean on the commissioners. So it hasn't even gone through that process, let alone be voted on by the board. So when they report that it's been agreed upon, it makes me think that the executive director is dealing with the ESPN on this and agreed, like, okay, I will present this to the commissioners, and that's it. It is not a done deal. It's not voted upon. And as Moen is saying, this might have been leaked out as in a way to get other offers. We're not quite sure. It's just, if it was a done deal, ESPN would have their reporters report it, not the Athletics.
Moen?
Yeah, this was leaked for a reason, just like almost every report you see in the media. It's put out there for a reason. It was put out there by the Athletic. My opinion in it was the SEC and the Big Ten that leaked it. One, it puts more pressure on Schultz. Two, it puts the number out there where people can go, that number is disappointing. Three, it puts it to where another streamer or another partner might be able to buy that. I'm looking at Peacock. I'm looking at Amazon. I'm looking at Netflix. Netflix is now in the sports game with WWE. So, everything is put out there for a reason, and this is no different.
Go ahead.
I was just to add to that. I agree with him that the Big Ten and the SEC probably work together on this. This might be the very first little bit that comes out of the advisory committee where they kind of came up with a plan together. But I do think it was probably the Big Ten that pulled the trigger on this one, because that's Nicole Auerbach from the Athletic. She's also the liaison between NBC Sports and the Big Ten. Whereas I think the SEC probably didn't want to be involved with the leaking because this has to do with ESPN. But I do agree with him that they probably had some discussion on this together. And this is the first example of their little partnership.
So let's work through this. And I do want to give credit to Andrew Marchand, Nicole Auerbach, Stuart Mandel, and Chris Vanini. It's some good reporting. I think there's a lot of smoke and mirrors to it. It does feel like a leak to me, but they wrote it, so I give them credit. So the headline here, ESPN and the College Football Playoff are in agreement on a 6-year, $7.8 billion extension that will make the network the home of the 12-team tournament through 31-32. That just happens to be the year after the Big 12's contract ends and the year before the SEC's next negotiating window begins. So there's a little window there. 6 years seems, because the last contract lasted how long? It went from 2014 to now, right?
Yeah, 12 years.
Yeah.
Okay, so 6 years is half of 12. And I think we're seeing that it's better for shorter windows to negotiate. You can get that accelerated cost. Otherwise, you're the ACC stuck in a 20-year contract. But still, that stood out to me. Let me just get the first couple lines in here. The full contract's completion is still contingent on CFP leaders finalizing details of the expanded format in the wake of the implosion of the Pac-12. So this was one of the steps that we've talked about for almost the last year that had to happen before the negotiating could basically be done and they could really start to hammer out a final piece to that. So Pac-12's gone. We're not counting it as another autonomous league. Now we're just dealing with 4. It says the CFP's management committee. Let me highlight this because I'm going to read it. The CFP's management committee. That didn't work. There we go. And board managers have meetings scheduled for next week and continue to work through the complicated process of settling their outstanding issues. What are some of those outstanding issues, Immaculate?
Well, number one, 5 + 7. Number two, payout for the Pac-2. They're still talking about SMU's payout, which, if we were to extend that outwards, you're now talking about, or any more G5s going to get the increased pay if they get moved up. So there's at least 3, if not more, that we haven't even been told about that they still have to all work on before they can really even sell this. So, they've got a lot on their table and they are not making progress. Time is ticking, but progress is not.
The ESPN deal will not be ratified until the commissioners and presidents vote on the structure and financials of the expanded college football playoff. That management committee includes 10 is it 9 leagues and Notre Dame now? because the Pac-12's gone?
It's
used to be
technically
10
still
and 1,
10,
right?
but it's they still get their payouts because now it's the way those payouts are worked is per school. It's no longer per conference, and then your the amount that goes to the conference is just every single school added up. So
Okay.
technically, it's the Pac still is part of it because it has two schools that are in the agreement, like Oregon State and Washington State are listed, so they still get that.
Okay. It continues. ESPN has 2 years remaining on its current deal, which carries an average payment of blah, blah, blah million. And the CFP semifinals and championship plus the other four, other 4 New Year's 6 bowl games. So now there's 12-team playoff. How many games are we looking at now? Is it a total of 11?
11.
Yep.
11. So that's what this would cover, would be 11 games. There is no expansion to 16 in this sort of brief leak. Who's surprised by that? I am actually surprised by that.
Nope, I'm not.
Nope.
They've
Okay.
been trying to say like they have shown their hand that they want to give benefits to their conference champions. If you go to 16, you lose the bye probably. So I think that they want that. They want the bye, and I think that means a lot to these conferences. So yeah, I'm actually not surprised about that.
You didn't? I didn't hear you.
Yeah, if we go to a 16, I'm kind of curious though, guys. It struck my mind here are we going to see like a automatic bid of like a 3-3-2-2 for the A4? Like, are we going to get 3 automatic bids for the SEC, 3 automatic bids for the Big, 2 for the Big 12, and 2 for the ACC? Is that something to expect if we go to 16? Because I think that we all think it's going to go to 16, right?
I don't.
You don't think it's going to go to 16?
No, I do.
Most people would probably agree with you and think that it will. I just don't.
I'm looking at $1.3 billion, and I'm saying I think it's going to get a little bit bigger.
I think they're actually not going to have the CFP as we know it, and they're going to switch to something else. That's been my point all along, and I'm still sticking with it because I haven't seen anything to change my mind. Is that the Big Ten and the
Would
SEC?
that be a Super League final or something?
No, it'd be like conference playoffs.
No, he's using the college football. He's using the league conference.
Yeah, so the conference playoffs would be the bigger thing that lead to a smaller tournament that is like the CFP, but not as big. And so that way the Big Ten and the SEC would get a much bigger cut because it's all theirs in their playoffs. And that's how it goes. Because if they're going to either ask for uneven payouts in this from the other conferences, and if that doesn't work out, then they'll just be like, well, we're not going to sign on with this and we need to figure out something new.
I would just say the reason I disagree with it has nothing to do with the structure. Everything Immaculate's always said makes total sense, and maybe even the money does. What they would lose is if you go to conference championship games, now no longer do you have these confrontational
correct
games.
You're correct. It would.
And I think that really is an essential part of any playoff, but that's just an opinion.
And it's a valid opinion. A lot of people would agree with that. I would return that and say the future, though, is that these conferences are going to be so big that they kind of already are that. You know what I mean? Like the Big Ten is more. It's if you've got the West Coast schools, if you've got a Florida State coming in or North Carolina, whomever, you're already basically a combination of 3 conferences. The Big 12 is bringing in some ACC, some Pac. It's a combination of 3 conferences. The SEC, it's brought in some Big 12 and some ACC. It's a combination of 3 conferences. You're kind of already getting that, if that makes sense.
I think that is valid. I just the thing that I think that the big conferences don't want is they don't want their playoff champions to be the end of it represents everything that is that league. You know, Alabama or Georgia would eat each other alive every year. So they would sort of eat their young, as it were. And I think they would much rather beat up on a Big 12 team or even a lower, if the ACC's around, or even the Big 10, a secondary school. They'd rather beat them up than kill themselves. That's just my thought, right? In this playoff now, if they go to 12 teams, you can see, some crazy number, maybe 5 SEC 6 SEC teams? You would lose that if you went to a tournament style for the different conferences.
Yeah, maybe. I mean, I think there are plenty, and maybe we should ask Opie about this in chat, but I think there are plenty of SEC fans. When you see them talk about the CFP, they're always like, needs to have more SEC teams. I think that they would be perfectly fine with having their own conference playoff with just SEC teams in it. And with Big Ten folks, it's always kind of been insular, so I think that they would be fine with it. And so I think, maybe like Big 12 and ACC might be like, well, we might not make as much off of it, but the Big Ten and the SEC, I strongly believe that they will actually make more with the situation that I'm talking about than they would with the CFP. But I think you're right too, that they're not against like the cross coverage. I'm just saying if the CFP breaks down, if they can't really get something worked out, if it's just too much of a headache, at some point they're just going to say, F it. We'll make more money doing this. Yeah, it's not going to be as much cross coverage. It's not optimal. It's not perfect, but they'll make more. And they're already going to be like such larger conferences with memberships that are all new that, I kind of think that it's where we're going. And I know some people want that to be wrong, and I could definitely be wrong, but it's just, to me, it's an easy solution when the CFP board is kind of proven to kind of be at a crossroads here where they can't come to a single solution.
So Immaculate, under that scenario, would the Big 12 and the ACC be playing for different championships
No.
in the Big 10 and the SEC? I guess I don't know how that would work
It'd
as
be
far
your
as who wins
conference-
the championship.
Your conference playoff, and then your champion goes into a tournament. And so, like, I think that would probably be, my thing is 6. Of course, it could be whatever. I'm not deciding it. But it'd be like your Big 10, SEC, Big 12, ACC champs, and then like your top 2 G5s, the Big 12 and the ACC champs would play those champs in the first round. Big 10, SEC get buys, and then you're basically a Big 12, ACC each going up against the Big 10. And SEC, winner of that goes in the championship. So it's really still going to have that national feel. It's just not as much because, the CFP's kind of breaking apart internally, it seems.
Don't they want that? Just spurs a thought in my head. Just a light bulb you would have seen go over my hat. Doesn't that you take away those games, those playoff games, those home playoff games? Those are revenue sources, right? You take away playoff games, you're reducing. Yeah, your team gets a bye, but I don't think the bye is as valuable to the conference as the money is it?
Well, in the 12 team right now, where we're getting in the first round, is they're testing multiple things with these next 2 years. Remember, this wasn't supposed to change for these 2 years. They're doing a test of both the bye system and the home games in the first round. Now, if they do this conference playoff situation, that's a whole lot more home games. In my opinion, that's a lot more money because now you're selling all those tickets and all that money is staying with your school and with the conference. Whereas when you play in a bowl system in a neutral site, a bunch of that money is getting sucked up for the bowl committee and for the local, the groups that are involved with that. So in that case, there's more money for the conference and the teams as well because it's a home game. And I can't remember who made this point on the show. I think it was Zoot, or one of you guys was talking about travel is going to be such a pain in the butt for these 3 or 4 week long tournaments to get fans to go to multiple away games, basically at these neutral sites. Whereas if you're having it as home games, it's much easier to fill multiple games in these longer tournaments if it's at home because your fandom's already there. They're already willing to come to your games locally. So I actually think it solves that logistical problem that we have not yet seen, but we may see in this first year of the 12 team is that some of those, not the first round, but the second round games, they may not have as full of stadiums as we're used to seeing in the playoffs.
All right, very fair. Anything else before I move on to down in the commentary? All right, the next thing it says, over the course of the contract, ESPN will have the ability to sublicense games, meaning another network or digital player could air playoff games, but it would be at Disney-owned ESPN's discretion. Moen, what does that mean?
It would mean that they can sublicense.
And who would their primary partner be in that case?
Fox or Warner Brothers Discovery.
And what does that have to do with? Why do those three associate?
Because that's who they're aligned with now for their new streaming app that's going to carry all the sports on cable in your own app for whatever they charge, and as part of a bundle. It'll be bundled with Hulu, which is owned by Disney, mostly owned by Disney, I should say. It'll be bundled with HBO Max, where you can get an HBO Max bundle with the sports package. And Fox really doesn't have an app, so it'll just be Fox on their own.
It's such collusion, guys. Like, seriously.
Yeah.
If you really think about it and stuff, if ESPN really low bid this and Fox and NBC didn't really want to go after it because they're going to sub-license games and they had like some type of handshake agreement, it's very, very sketchy. I mean, you want to talk about how you become more profitable if you're Fox on these type of ventures? That's kind of how you do it. Unfortunately, that would be illegal. If that stuff happened, and it looks like it is with this new strategic group, strategic partnership, strategic buddyship, friendship, whatever you want to call it.
So let me read this next paragraph, and then we can talk about it a little more. The deal would give ESPN, otherwise known as God, control over nearly all Division I college sports championships outside of the men's basketball tournament, which is televised by CBS TNT at all. In early January, ESPN and the NCAA announced a new 8-year, $920 million contract that gives the network the rights to 40 championships, including the women's basketball tournament. That extension begins in September. So the two words that come to mind are collusion and monopolies. At what point does somebody file a lawsuit and say this is just too much under one banner?
It'd be up to the other networks if they want to push that. I mean, how hard are they pushing to try and break in right now? Like, as we were saying, in a tough market, are they really wanting to go spend big to break into this now, or would they rather wait to 5 years from now or 6 years from now? I don't know. Maybe they don't like this mode. Maybe they would rather have it like, something with more home games, or I don't know. But yeah, that's who it's up to. It'd be up to the other networks.
Yeah, the problem is, what are they going to do? They're going to go and say, this is a monopoly as we sit with our monopolies. NBC, Peacock, Comcast is a monopoly. Paramount, CBS, Viacom is a monopoly. It's the glass houses throwing stones analogy here. You can all say, hey, that's a monopoly. But they're a monopoly. So I don't see the networks doing anything.
If we know anything about what we're dealing with college sports, change is constant. So over decades and hundreds of years, we've gone from deregulation to monopolies to deregulation to monopolies, back and forth, and it's been going on for centuries. I think we might be coming back to a point where there's too much under too few hands, like Microsoft, for instance. So anyway.
No, yeah, that's a natural pattern. Like, they naturally come together, and at some point in time, you got to step in and do a little breaking apart. I mean, we've seen that many times through the history of this country with big companies having to get broken apart.
I found this one interesting. The board originally approved a model that includes the 6 highest ranked conference champions and the 6 highest ranked at-large teams. The impending departure of 10 teams from the Pac-12 has led to a push to tweak the model to 5 conference championships and 7 at-larges. What is that all about?
Yeah, so that's 5-7 model that we've been talking about a lot. Once the Pac-12 busted up, that was no longer a viable solution long term. So the conversations about the 5-7 right now, and that's what Mr. Schultz is hanging up, the decision making on the 5-7 model. And it looks like if it's probably going that way anyway, guys. 5-7 is probably going to get done eventually here. But that really is who has an automatic bid into the college football playoff, the 12-team playoff. Or is it going to be 5 schools that have automatic bids through their own conferences, or is it going to be 6? And if it's 6, what's the time frame? If it's going to be 6, is it going to be a 2-year period? Longer? Those things are still being worked on and negotiated.
I'm sorry, Moan or Immaculate?
Yeah, I think basically this has all been pretty much approved, but this has been kind of a sticking point that Schultz has used in his path to get something else. The 5+7 makes sense. If they don't move to that, there's going to be 2 G5 champions, which I don't personally have a problem with thematically, but I can see from them when the CFP is just a money generating machine. It's not going to generate as much money if you have that extra G5 in there. It's just not. I like it just pure competition and giving them a chance. But yeah, they want to move to this, and Schultz is kind of holding that for ransom. So as soon as he gets something that he wants, he'll probably vote yes on that, and we'll be over with that.
Immaculate. That's a fantastic point you just brought up. The ESPN doesn't want a G5 getting into the playoff.
There's going to be one under the 5+7 because it's automatic, but they don't want 2.
I'm just throwing this out there. Like, if it happened to go to a 4-8 model, I wonder if the playoff would be more money than $1.3 billion.
I would be willing to bet it would be.
I would too. That's a fantastic point. I hadn't thought about it before, Immaculate.
Yep. But
like, I mean, that's
the G5s have votes on that board too, so good luck getting that past them. Like they said, they were fine with 5+7. Oresco, his direct words, he's fine with moving to a 5+7 if the pack situation gets resolved. He said that back, like it was a direct quote of him. And then when he said once it got resolved, the whole taking on the NCAA policy of needing 8 teams, that basically did in the pack and it's getting one of these AQs. They were fine. The G5s were like, okay, we can move to a 5+7. I don't think they would agree to a 4+8. At least for this next 2 years, they would block that in a heartbeat, in my opinion.
Isn't this where the conversation comes that they talk about the 4 autonomous leagues just breaking away, walking away from this in 2026 and doing their own thing, not involving the lower division schools at all?
I mean, in theory, yeah. In practice, that's probably a much more complicated political problem in many states than one might realize. I know you've even had some chats with some folks in chat about certain connections that go on between certain big universities and some of these other G5 universities in these states. So it might not be as easy as we think just by looking at the numbers, because when you look at the numbers, yeah, I mean, that makes sense. But I think politically that might be a problem. So like I said, I think that they might just move to a system where each conference kind of has to work their own conference playoff deal with the networks. And in that case, the SEC and the Big are going to make a whole shitload more than everyone else. But I think the G5s would also make more than they're making right now too, because there's not enough postseason content for all the networks and streamers and everything. They'd get postseason like conference playoff deals where they can't get regular season deals. So it's a complicated situation. I don't think that they're really looking to just jettison everyone, but they might just be like, yep, this is too much of a pain in the ass. We're not going to do this with you guys anymore. We'll work with you in a smaller degree.
Moen, you want to comment on that at all?
Yeah, that's unequal revenue sharing is going to come to the CFP. And if it doesn't come to the CFP, the Big and the SEC will walk. They'll walk. I mean, they've got the biggest brands. They've accumulated the most teams and the most value. That's nothing against the other conferences, but that's just the cold, hard truth. So they can demand more. And they're probably going to demand more.
Really quick, one last to round this conversation up before we get to Q&A, which is what everybody's waiting for.
Oh, yeah.
We're over 1,000. We're over 1,000 comments tonight. I appreciate everybody contributing. We'll get to that in just a second. Last paragraph here. Outstanding issues still to be settled for the CFP's new 6-year contract include the ongoing discussions of future governance, revenue distribution, and access. And I would put access in capitals because I think that at the end of the day is going to be what people are fighting for. Last piece is the commissioners are working through all 3 areas and are expected to discuss them at the meeting next week in Dallas. Sources involved in the discussion says there was no timeline. Let me repeat that again. No timeline for this being actually set up. The Kirk Schultz holdout obviously is a big part of this because they can't go to 5-7 without it. So we have no timeline when this is going to be announced. This came in out as today. We didn't even know anything about it. So yeah. Any final words about this, guys?
Unequal revenue distribution. That's not that's not going to sit well with the Big 12 and the ACC here, guys. Like, it's funny how that comes up so easily right now, but yet the Big 10 won't do that in its own conference, right? Like, you have powers like Ohio State that make 10 times as much as Indiana, and you won't talk about uneven revenue distribution. All of a sudden you get the CFP and you do it with the Big 12 and the ACC. I don't like that at all. I think that, like, hey, everyone gets paid the same in this playoff, and if you're not going to do that, then you might as well do it in your own freaking conference too. Because Indiana's no way that Indiana should warrant as much money as freaking Ohio State. That's total bullcrap. They have nowhere near as much. They don't bring that type of value, nor does Northwestern. So if we're going to go that way, let's just do it in every conference and everywhere, and not have equal revenue sharing amongst the big brothers over here.
Yeah, that's in a perfect world, you'd be right, but it's not a perfect world. And if the Big Ten and SEC, if the Big Ten and SEC have the right, if they come in there and say we want more money than every other conference, or we walk, they're walking with all the major brands. I mean, outside of there, nothing against the Big 12 schools, great football, love it, but they just can't. In terms of brand value, they can't match up to those two. Neither can the ACC. When Florida State leaves, when Clemson leaves, when Miami leaves, when all these schools leave the ACC, they're going to be left with nothing but they'll get Oregon State, they'll get Washington State, and they maybe pull up a few more G5s. They're not going to have the brand value anymore. This is what consolidation does. It consolidates wealth.
And that's why leverage. That's why the Big 12 and the ACC need leverage, because I agree with you, with the NCAA tournament. Because that's the only place you can punch back, and it has to happen. You have to pluck it from the NCAA, leverage that tournament with the bigger basketball brands to do the same thing to get some leverage here. It has to happen, Bomber. It really does.
It's a great point, and
I agree with you.
Lead me into what Dellinger put in his. He said,
"You and I are on the same page here."
Yeah, and Dellinger put in his article today. Go ahead. He's freezing up there. Go ahead, Bomber. We can see you now.
Go ahead. No, you're good.
Okay, it kind of froze up there.
Yeah, I'm not saying anything. Go ahead.
Apologies. Dellinger had an article
no big deal.
today, and in it, one of the little line he put in there was one of the things that's coming now is an expansion of the NCAA basketball tournament, which another thing that was said that kind of floored me because that has not really been talked about. I mean, it's already at 68 teams. And they're talking about expanding it. And Dellinger, remember, this is a guy that Sankey talks to. But he was also quoting Petiti now a lot. So they're both talking with him. So if that is something that he's talking about coming, I think that's something they're willing to give to the NCAA, but also to the Big 12 and maybe ACC, is by expanding that there's more money in the Big 10 in the tournament. And that's something that the NCAA is going to hold on to. And not give up any governance until they know for sure that the conferences aren't going to leave out on that. So if they're talking about expanding the NCAA, I think that is an overall part of the big negotiation.
If I'm Brett Yormark, I'm going after the NCAA and trying to pluck the basketball tournament away from the NCAA grasp, given all the legal lawsuits going on right now, versus taking on the Big 10 and the SEC.
Yeah,
that's an easy target going after the NCAA. And guys, like, we're talking about a free market here. The NCAA negotiated crap contracts for the NCAA basketball tournament where it's yielding $1 billion. Like, those are really, really low based on all the analysts' expectations. So if you were to pry your basketball rights away from the NCAA and have private equity involved, you might be able to get a 3 times multiplier and make it a $3 billion tournament. $2 billion tournament, and all of a sudden the payouts are substantially more, and basketball's worth a lot more than it is today. Instead of 20% of football, can get up to 40 or 50% of football. Then all of a sudden the power dynamic and the leverage dynamic between the ACC and the Big 12 and then the P2 changes. And so I'm just telling you from that perspective, from a Big 12 fan perspective, that's the only lever that you have, and you have to take that on.
If there's anybody that can do it, it's Brett Yormark. I know that. So, I mean, I know they're going to try the best they can to get as much access and control to the Big 12 as possible. I feel very strongly that he's going to do that, but a lot of this stuff isn't in his control. And so I think that's where a Big 12 Mafia show, a college football Mafia show, can be advocates for some of these storylines to try to keep the Big 12 and even the ACC in people's minds so they don't forget about us. And I think the more pressure that we can put on, I wouldn't rule out anything as being the deal breaker that is counterproductive. I think it's all very valuable. All right.
One last point on that real quick, if I could.
Yeah,
On Dillinger's article, at the very start of the article, he's not quoting Sankey. He's not quoting Petiti. He's quoting Yormark, and he's talking about the Big 12 at the very start of it. So just understand, I don't think the Big 12 is being left behind. I don't think they're being looked at. I think he is working, and he's working with them. I know he may not be in the advisory room with them, but I would highly suggest, if that interests you, to check out that article, because it isn't just about those two. It is about the Big 12 as well.
I guess it's not about access again. I'm not talking about access. I'm talking about being relegated to G5 status as the Big 12 conference by even like this, speaking about uneven, distributions right here. Like that's a valid argument to be making, and Moen's brought up and everything. It's probably going to happen. I totally understand it. Stuff, but that's just the relegation of your conference and like getting slapped around and everything. You're not included in the meetings and everything. So it's not just about access. It's about being taken seriously here. It's about being a peer rather than a little brother. That's what's going on right now. And so you need to get some leverage back and fight back.
I appreciate you clarifying. That is exactly right. And I didn't say that at all. So it is the bigger fight. And the Big 12, Big 12 needs to eat up what's left of the ACC and make it an autonomous 3. That's their best advantage forward. That's what I'm thinking. But who knows where we go. All right, we have had over 1,000 comments tonight. I'm going to try to get to as many as I can. And normally we go 2 hours, so there's only about 25 minutes left, but we'll see how this thing goes. Let's start off with Buckshot Kid from earlier says, great video on does UNC fit the big? Can't wait for does Georgia Tech drinking game fit the big? Where's that on our list, dude? Is Georgia Tech after Miami?
Georgia Tech, we can put, Immaculate and I are going to do Georgia Tech together. Immaculate's asked to be a special guest. Okay. So Professor Immaculate's coming in the house here.
I want to say this one thing, though, on that. I love the kind of the relationship that you got going on in those videos with both these two guys. And I honestly think that what's best for the video is for that to continue. But I will do it with you. Of course, I'll talk about some Georgia Tech, but I think that maybe my best position on that is analyzing it afterwards, because I've really enjoyed the work that you three have done on those videos so far.
If you're concerned that the video won't go quite as smooth, we can just keep it members only, Immaculate.
might be
Immaculate. I'm gonna have to bring you in. We're gonna do that one together, okay? Georgia Tech.
Okay. I just want to be on record saying that every time I do one of those shows with you, I feel smarter. So I always like to do them. But obviously, you guys have bigger pieces to connect. Just let me know when you need my help. That's all I'm saying. All right, let's get to Timothy Green. Timothy Green says, I have a question to the panel. So how much money would be a fair amount to all? College football playoff.
That is such a big question.
2.1 billion.
That's what that was supposed to be.
Great.
That's what it was supposed to be. That was the projection.
BYU, let's cash a check. That's what I'm saying.
I think that the decrease in the pay is directly correlated to the fact that there isn't healthy competition through multiple media partners, and that is just ESPN's offer. We want the whole thing. Here's what we'll pay you for it. That's why it's this low, because it's them controlling the whole thing, and then they'll sub-license out to others. And that's a big question. Do they eat all of that themselves, or do they then have to pass that out too, so the payout would actually be more than 1.3? We just don't know that detail, but I'm really shocked to see it that low. I think at least 2 billion is where they were thinking.
Yeah, with these guys, 2 billion, like 2 to 2.5 billion is what you'd think. would land at. So it's significantly lower here.
That is like more than half lower. Yeah,
Like,
that's crazy.
Around the 2 billion mark, like it's 700 million per year less.
Yeah,
so you can do the math on that. It's pretty
ridiculous.
substantial payout per A4 school.
Last week, Fox, ESPN, and WB, Warner Brothers, so put this cobbled together group. They're going to do it by the end of the summer. They're going to have something for this fall where they're going to be showing football games on this one client. If anybody thought that was an accident, you're crazy. In fact, now that I'm looking back on it, hindsight, I can say that the news release on that was kind of hanky.
Mm-hmm.
It didn't look polished at all. It's like, let's throw something together quick and just put it out there. And I think it's exactly to get around the end run of that sub-licensing agreement for Fox and whoever else. That's the easiest way to get around that requirement on that contract that's now been proposed. So, yeah, I don't like it at all. Daniel Gygax, thanks for being here, Daniel. One of our members says, at $133.33 million per playoff game is more than the per game amount paid for Monday Night Football. I don't think the CFP is getting a small amount.
Yeah,
Okay.
but these are playoff games versus regular season games. And Monday Night Football is, I think, the number 3 slot. Or no, it's actually the number 4 slot in the weekend. Because you've got NBC with their game of the week. You've got CBS with their game of the week. You've got Fox with their game of the week.
Yeah, I get what he's saying here. I think that those postseason games, the value has skyrocketed. And when you look at the numbers on the average of those, they're way above. Like the Monday Night Football, I think is like, 11 million viewership, someone was saying. Well, all of those CFP games are well above that. So, it should be well above that in payout.
I'm so curious about that. I think it's a fantastic question in response there, Daniel. So I was just going to jump on Sports Watch Media to actually look what the Monday Night Football viewership was compared to the playoffs. So, yeah, we need to follow up on that one. That's an interesting point, though. Monday Night Football brings in eyeballs, but it's largely dictated by matchups. But really, I think these CFP games are going to get more viewership, even probably by a couple million more.
I am just looking here. I still don't see that slide for some reason. Which DM group did you send it to?
Here, let me send it to you right here.
Okay. There's a topic Ute wants to cover, and I don't want to miss out and forget. So while he's doing that, I'll take one more comment. Don Scruggs says, "What's up, y'all? SEC fan here. Don, I'm working on an SEC Mafia show. If you know anybody that's a good creator over there that might want to do something, please let me know." What's that?
I said, "Oh, there goes the neighborhood."
That's okay.
No,
got to get everybody in here.
It'll
man.
be fun. I would not mind having an SEC guy jumping in here with us. That could be very interesting.
Christopher Shannon, an OU fan, says the other companies need to bid. Yep, we've talked about that at length.
That's right.
All right, I see it now. Okay.
The Sooners, man, yeah.
All right, let me see. Oh, yeah, I found it. Here we go.
Thanks, all right, guys. So, yeah, so this working on Miami to the Big Ten, I guess, see if they're a fit. That's going to be the next Wild U University video. It's going to come out in a few weeks. Not completely done with the analysis, but this absolutely is blowing my freaking mind. And I had to show this to everybody and bring up this conversation because I think it's fascinating. It's talking about media markets versus market size. So as you can see here, this is going to be one of the slides, one of the pieces of analysis in that future video. But based on the market, when you're looking at the Hurricanes compared to existing Big Ten markets, like that Miami, Florida, and Lauderdale, Florida market, it actually stack ranks 13th out of 19 Big Ten schools as far as market size when you're looking at the aggregation of it. And when I saw that at first, I'm like, that can't be right. Because really what that shakes out as the DMA, which is the designated market area for Miami and Fort Lauderdale, is 1.7 million homes. 1.7 million. That's the DMA. The Metropolitan Statistical Area, that's the MSA, that you'll hear a lot of people saying, like, of how many people are in a geographic territory. There's 6.1 million people that live in that area. 6.1 people that live in that area, yet the designated market is only 1.7 million. And that's surprising on the surface to me. So I actually put it out on social media and asking around. And thank you, Daniel, and to others that responded and kind of just bouncing ideas back and forth. But Bob Thompson luckily clarified really what was going on here. So your DMA is really your households, like television households, whereas your MSA is all the total population of people in an area. So media companies don't necessarily care about the total population. They care about households and TV households, obviously, because they want eyeballs and people watching their product and to get advertising revenue. So Miami, while it has a 6.1 million people population, homes-wise, as far as like recorded television media market homes, 1.7 million, which stack ranks 13 out of 19 big territories. Crazy, shocking to me. I can't believe it. I thought Miami was for sure going to be like a top 3 to 5 market for sure. But based on the DMA, which the media companies care about, guys, 13th. And like, it's not to say Miami's small. 1.7 million is still, a top 20 market nationally. But the Big Ten has these gigantic markets like, your Seattle's, your New York's, your LA's, your Chicago's, your DC's. So Miami's not necessarily like a strong player as far as market size in the Big Ten, like I previously thought before doing some analysis here, but wanted to lay out the difference between a metropolitan statistical area, MSA, 6.1 million people, and also the designated market area, the DMA for Miami's 1.7 million. And that difference you'll see in a few weeks when you watch that video.
That's striking.
Crazy.
In those numbers. Yeah, we're going to have to ask Bob about that tomorrow night.
Yes, please do.
Yeah, you'll have to put the question together. No, I can't replay your video for him, but sure. I want to make sure that we ask it in the right way. So if you just type up a little script, I'm happy to do that. I'm sure he'd be happy to answer it too.
How's Miami not like a top half Big Ten media market as far as like television households? Does that make any sense to you guys?
Well, it's a school.
Yeah, it does to me. If you live in Miami, you're not sitting on your ass watching television. You're up here in the cold weather in the Big Ten country. Yeah, you only get to go outside maybe 25% of the days of the year without dealing with some weather event.
And for the people who might attend those events, how many of them maybe don't care about American football as much? There's a large swath of Hispanic communities down there.
Latino, yep.
I don't think they care about American football as much. And the people who do are old and retired. So while it's this huge market and a lot of the people who are coming in, there's a lot of tech money there. What's another area you think of when you think of tech? You think the Bay Area. Not a whole lot of college football or even big football watching going on there either by the people in the tech field.
Right.
So I think the Miami is this big, huge kind of paper tiger. But
sure, it looks like that immaculate. It does.
And that's, I haven't been high on them. And I am not going to slam that brand. That brand is always going to be thought of, even when it's not as big as, but the Miami market, in my opinion, gets talked about a little more than it should. It's surrounded on 3 sides by water, whereas, a market like Atlanta is surrounded on all sides by college football hungry people. So it's 2 different worlds, basically.
We'll have to see. It's intriguing that Ute now says Clemson's with UNC. You might have thought that Miami might have been going with UNC. So I think there's some strategery going on there, and it's extremely interesting. We'll continue to track it for everybody. Let's see here. Christopher Shannon. Thanks for being here, Christopher. Then other companies need to bid. Oh, I already did that. I apologize. Well, it's good to see you anyway twice, Christopher. Let's see. Edward Wayner, one of our members, says, do you think the CFP will work out a deal with Washington State or Oregon State to grandfather them to receive P4 CFP share in return to allowing 5-7 to go ahead? My answer to that is yes. I think they're going to pay them off. That's what my solution is, unless the ACC is a white knight that comes out of left field. I think they're going to write him a check. But what do you guys think?
They have to. the way that the whole CFP is set up at the board level with unanimous vote, I mean, it's inevitable. Sorry. I think it's not coming down to whether they will do it. It's just the details. Like they're nitpicking now and like, all right, well, what if we just don't quite give them this much? Like it's not about whether it's going to happen. It's going to be the details of it when it does happen.
Mo,
I don't see it happening.
Yeah, I'm going to say no also.
No way.
How does it not happen?
Go ahead, Moan.
Yeah, it's not going to happen because they can just wait 2 years and go start a new CFP system.
But yeah, but the 5+7 is just for these 2 years. So by not doing that, you're going to have the G5s take basically 2 champions, and you're going to have lower viewership, and your money's going to be down lower anyway. So one way or another, you're losing that money off of the back end, off of the payouts coming in from the network, or you're paying the pack for it just to get through this so you can move on. I think they'll get it, but maybe they don't, like you're saying. But it's just for 2 years. It's not a. They're trying to get the long-term deal. And like I said, the CFP may not survive past 25, so that might be a moot point.
Yeah, I think they'll just say, no, you can take this for this many, and that's what it is. But, I mean, I don't see them, the BIG or the SEC, relent. If they wanted to relent, they would have relented already. This would all be done by now. They don't want to relent on this.
There might be just, I mean, you're talking a small percentage of any big deal they already have, though. Just to get the annoyance out of the way, I could see them writing a check. $5 million, take it or leave it, we're done.
And we're talking
maybe
about
SMU
for 2 years, right? Not like forever.
Yeah, just
right?
for the 2 years. Yeah.
I think
I
SMU should write the check.
Well, they already are, aren't they?
You know what?
All right.
Okay. I think I misunderstood the question. I thought we were talking about it into the future too, after the 2 year period, where like Wazoo and Oregon State would want equal payouts under the new contract. And I don't think that's going to happen for 2 years. Sure, let them have funding for 2 years, but then after that 2 year period, no way they're getting equal share, because that's $15 million per year going into 7, 8, 9, 10 years each. $30 million for the both of them, whereas that's not going to the other schools in the A4. So it's just not going to happen. It's too much money.
All right. Thank you, Edward. Appreciate the comment. I'm going to do a last call for any super chats. We're not going to get to any more open comments. I've already got my queue full, but if you definitely want to get your question out, make it a super chat and we'll make sure to cover it before the show is over. Opie Didon in the house. Good to see you here, Opie. Where's your membership? You need to sign up, brother. For a company that is supposedly going broke, they sure are spending money at ESPN. And that was my first thought when I saw the negotiated number. I'm like, when did ESPN get more money? What do you guys think about that?
Well, these payouts aren't based upon how much money cash they have on hand. They're based upon projections of how much they'll make from these. So I see this comment a lot, and I get it, but that's not exactly what they're basing these payoffs on. They're based upon projections of what they'll make. So it's not coming out of their pocket. It's coming out of what they're expecting to make. And if they don't make that, let it be known, those payouts go down. Like it's not set in stone. You get paid this. This is just a projection of what you get paid if we get the numbers that we think we'll get.
Right.
That's well said. That's well said.
Okay. Let's get to a new member gift we just had given out. Mo, and tell everybody what a gifted membership is.
Yeah, Ryan Willie has gifted one membership to Douglas Zikafus. I hope I said that last name right. Thank you so much, Ryan Willie.
Well done. I did not want to say it.
Thank you, Ryan.
Winner.
That makes you a
winner.
There we go. I like it. We hope you come around more, Douglas. Thank you so much for being here. And we appreciate Ryan being very generous and paying it forward with a gift for somebody else. Thank you very much. Hope you enjoy your time here. We're trying to do as much good work as we can, believe me. Becky Go Huskies, a contributing editor, I would say, to the Mafia channel. Pac-2 honestly doesn't need a commissioner right now anyway. Yeah, I think it's a superfluous position. I don't think they need it at this point. Kirk Schultz is pretty much the de facto commissioner anyway. Let's see here. Next one from Joey Z says, this is all more exciting than that Super Bowl, to be honest.
Joey, come on, man.
I mean, I would agree with him.
Well, I hope for that.
I'm a
If they're
realignment
that
junkie,
exciting-
though, so you know.
If the Chiefs were in the Super Bowl, I'd agree with that too, actually. So there you go.
Daniel Gygax, one of our members, says, will the ACC still be an autonomous conference once UNC, Clemson, FSU, etc. leave? It may be a little too late for Oregon State and Washington State. That is the one sort of fly in the ointment, is I do believe if those schools leave, the ACC ceases to be a power conference. What do you guys think?
If I may, real quick, I would
Yeah,
say
please.
watch the situation going on with Dartmouth that's going on this month. They just gave them a 2-week extension on having there's two different things. There's the vote that's happening in early March by the basketball team for their union representation, but also the Dartmouth is getting their the appeal. Their chance to do that was pushed back 2 weeks as well. So if that all goes through as seen, that's going to spread like wildfire through those schools in that conference. And as I said with folks, some people don't agree with me where they're going to go, and that's fine. But I think what we can all agree on is they're not going to be able to continue doing the same thing that they've done in the past. So they're either going to go down and get out of the whole system of all that in sports and maybe go Division III or nothing at all, or they're going to have to move up and make money. And so when we're talking about the ACC and what they'll do, it's either a very dark future that does take them downwards, or they find some new partners come in that with all their money could possibly change the dynamic in a way that people aren't really seeing right now. So, but as it is, if they're just adding in some AAC schools, yeah, I would question it as well. I don't know if they can maintain that or not. The others might vote them out.
Ute or Mo?
I don't think it happens. Yeah, I don't think that they're autonomous conference after Miami. I'm throwing Miami in there too. UNC, Clemson, Florida State, Notre Dame's unaffiliated. I think eventually too with the ACC. But the question is this: so even if they're not A4, is it better than being in the Mountain West? And I think yes. I think the answer is yes. I think the payouts are going to be better than the Mountain West. So it's going to be somewhere in the realm of A3 in that case, because the Big 12 would actually lift a little bit under a situation like that. And the Mountain West and the AAC. So they'd be kind of in that middle realm, and they'd get paid out appropriately in that realm too. So I think it's a better spot than they're at right now. It's a better spot than they would be at if they were in the Mountain West.
Moen.
Yeah, I think they still remain an autonomous conference. Strange bedfellows. I think the Big and the SEC, to get what they want out of those conferences, are going to make cut some kind of deal that allow them to remain autonomous for.
I can see that.
Fair
It
point.
would be the power of this new ACC, the football power.
Oregon State.
Maybe.
Notre Dame,
Because Virginia
Oh,
Tech's
Notre
probably
Dame
out,
is
right?
still there.
I mean, Notre Dame, yeah, they're going to
Stanford,
be gone.
Duke, Miami.
The answer is there isn't another power. It's Oregon State.
mean,
Notre Dame has to be the default.
If they remain in power and they still have a chance to get into everything, it basically shifts to whoever wins. That's the thing with these conferences. If you have a position of power, if you have a championship, if you have access, whoever wins your conference becomes more powerful than they were before if you have all of your top end leave.
All right, let's keep moving on. Oh, I see it now. The Timothy Green comment. Thanks for marking that. Whoever did that, I appreciate it. I just hadn't made it down there yet. Let's get first. We have a Summit Hawk. When have we had a show that Summit Hawk hasn't done a super chat?
Again,
Summit.
the Super
Thank you for being
Jayhawk.
generous, my friend.
I'm waiting for Moen.
Let him cook. Let him cook now. Let him cook.
That's so funny.
I was expecting the crow or whatever.
I'll give him one of those too.
Okay, all right. There we go.
There's the crow.
Summit Hawk, a member in great standing. He's the gift miser. And tonight he does a $5 super chat. Says, great show, gents. Georgia Tech equals cheers. There you go.
Cheers to that.
Summit Hawk with the drop in. Okay, let me get to this comment just so we don't miss it. Timothy Green, this is one of the top 5 shows about college football on YouTube, hands down, in my opinion. Thank you so much, Timothy Green.
Yeah.
Much appreciated from our guy. He's here every time at the beginning of the show, ready to go. And I know we all really appreciate Timothy being part of the community here every single time. So thanks again.
Absolute facts. All right, let's see if I can burn through a couple more of these, and then we'll check out of here. Jan Hulk says, yeah, how Grubb acted in this situation was just horrible. Not a good person move. Yeah, it certainly wasn't a high character move, I don't think. But is it really his fault, or is it Kalen DeBoer's fault? He was covering his friend.
Well, then Caleb DeBoer put him in a shitty situation, and he's a shitty friend.
Yeah.
I think they're both shitty people.
Yeah. Keep going. I'm listening. Are you
They're
done?
both shitty people. I mean, what more do you want me to say?
I don't want you to say anything. I just want to make sure your rant was over. All right. Cameron Kirkendall. Good to have you here, Cameron. If you're new, we appreciate you being here. I bet Chip Kelly would take the Bama job if they would have accepted him. Regardless, I'm sure Chip Kelly is just happy to be finally out of school with the football team. Oh,
Funny, he should mention this. What would have happened if Grubb had left at the right time and Chip Kelly was available to Alabama? Oh, well, guess we'll never know.
Yeah, that is interesting.
Yeah.
I don't know.
Karma's a real.
All right. OPD Don wrapping it up tonight. $25 super chat. Thank you so much.
Winner.
That is awesome.
Winner.
And claps. We have
Winner.
Thank you.
Thank you,
Opie.
Opie.
Thank you so much for being here tonight. We appreciate it always. $25 super chat. He says, okay, this super chat equals like 5 months worth of membership. Lol, but not yet.
Opie, I just want you to be able to see the GT video the moment it becomes
we want
available.
you to be able to see videos.
That's all.
I wish we had honorary ones we could do, but we can't do them that way. They have to go to this randomized thing.
YouTube is super old, way behind the times, guys.
Yeah,
Sorry.
you ought to be able to direct them, but anyway.
Yeah.
All right, I think that's where we're gonna check out. Way full night. We covered a ton of stuff. Just closing thoughts. What are you thinking going out of the show tonight?
Yeah, it was a blast tonight, guys. I love it. I love Moen when you do those little sound clips, man. He's cracking me up so bad. I love it. I love this community. It's a blast every time. Honestly, love talking about college football. 1.3 billion's low, but you know what? It's still 1.3 billion. So there's that. We'll see what happens with the landscape and everything. A lot of movement going on. It's so much fun in the off season just chatting about this stuff because I know the football season's over. I don't watch basketball. I don't watch tennis. I don't watch baseball. So this is what I got, guys, and I love talking about it.
Love it. Moen.
Yeah, Ryan Grubb, you're a douchebag. If I didn't say that earlier, if I didn't make that point clear, you're a douchebag.
Can I just say, as a Seahawk fan, I love him. So
yeah.
I don't care what he did.
You got the perfect douchebag. I hope you guys have nothing but
football
success.
Games, man. I want a Jim Harbaugh. I just want to win football games. Anyway, Immaculate.
Well, I just want to remind folks, we learned tonight. We learned that Bob Thompson is coming on the show tomorrow. And of all the folks that I saw on Twitter talking about what's going on today, which has been huge, his take was probably the most eye-opening to me. And I can't wait to see that show. And to top that off, then I think that we're going to continue to get a whole bunch of news this week. And that's going to continue for a while. It's all getting crunch time. So join us tomorrow for Bob Thompson. But after that, I highly suggest to be with us on that Friday show. It's a lot of fun. It gets a little wild, but I think we're going to have a ton to talk about. So great week so far, and looking forward to seeing it just continue on.
I got the brands underneath us in that last banner. I appreciate everybody being here tonight. Please follow us on Twitter. Make sure you're following our new brands, Moen After Dark, College Football Mafia, and Big West Mafia, and especially Wild Ute University. These are brands that are going to be just growing and growing, so you might as well subscribe and follow now, and I encourage you to do that. Thanks again for everybody being here tonight. We were over 100 for most of the night. Really appreciate everybody taking their time to watch us on a Tuesday. We will be back tomorrow. We know it's Valentine's Day, but it's a special entry because as has already been said, we have Bob Thompson hopefully coming in, unless he has some scheduling difficulty. Tomorrow night, I'm going to start that show at 7 Eastern. If Bob is able to come at that time, great. If he comes a little bit later, I'm going to try to run it for an hour or so. And then everybody will be gone for their Valentine's night. We appreciate everybody being here. Please follow us on Friday night at 7 p.m. Eastern. That's our party night. What's that new name, by the way, called?
That is now the Big Freaking Friday Show.
Big
BFF.
Freaking Friday show, dude.
Big
Yes.
it's your BFF. There we go. You sort of stole that.
The BFF.
The BFFs. We want to be your BFF. Friday night, 7
Big
Eastern.
freaking Friday show.
Make it appointment viewing. It's early in the evening. You have a chance to still go out and be with your loved one, and we appreciate everybody being here. I'm going to sign out. Everybody else have a great night. Drive safe if you've been drinking, and keep following us because more headlines will be out tomorrow, and we look forward to seeing everybody tomorrow night. Have a great night, and peace out. See you later.
Oops.
Sorry.